At 6 billion more for defence, as the Prime Minister says Britain faces grave new threats.
Starting today, I can announce this government will begin the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War.
The extra money for the armed forces will come from a cut in the foreign aid budget.
A big moment, a big decision ahead of a big meeting. The Prime Minister heads to see President Trump in America tomorrow. But firstly, he's been holding a news conference here in Downing Street in the last half hour or so. We'll bring you the highlights shortly.
Also tonight, a much bigger than expected rise in energy bills is announced from April. Caught on camera the moment thieves stole a solid gold toilet from Blenheim Palace in Oxfordshire. And live images of Jupiter, part of a rare planetary parade this week that won't be visible again until 2040.
On BBC London, a woman is run over and killed and 2 others are injured after a crash involving a car and a bus in northwest London. Police are appealing for witnesses.
Good evening and welcome to the BBC News at 6. The Prime Minister says the amount of money spent on defence will increase over the next 2 years from 2.3% of the national income to 2.5%. Sir Keir Starmer said the world was entering a dangerous new era. The government says it will cut foreign aid to fund several billions in extra spending. The charity Save the Children said they were taken aback by what they describe as a terrible decision for the world's poorest. The move comes as Sir Keir Starmer prepares to fly to Washington to meet President Trump at the White House on Thursday. Here's our Deputy Political Editor, Vicky Young.
Unwavering support. That's what Keir Starmer promised Ukraine's president when they met in Kyiv last month.
Which operates with the system mostly.
Providing Ukraine with the firepower to repel Russia comes at a price. And Europe's leaders have been told by America it's time they picked up more of the bill.
Is peace in Ukraine a realistic prospect, sir?
So for cabinet ministers meeting today, it meant signing off on a new spending plan, one the Prime Minister described as having painful consequences.
We must find courage in our history, courage in who we are as a nation, because courage is what our own era now demands of us. So starting today, I can announce this government will begin the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War.
The urgent boost to defence from 2.3% of national income to 2.5% is bad news for the foreign aid budget, which will be cut by billions.
That is not an announcement I am happy to make.
He said he'd look for other savings to protect the spending on aid, but
nonetheless, it remains a cut, and I will not pretend otherwise. We will do everything we can to return to a world where that is not the case and rebuild a capability on development. But at times like this, the defence and security of the British people must always come first.
The Conservative leader has previously called for defence spending to rise and welfare and overseas aid to be cut.
National interest should always come first. So I'm very pleased to hear the Prime Minister announce that increase to 2.5% by 2027. All of us on this side of the House welcome that. We've all wanted to see more spending on defence.
But there are plenty of dissenting voices. Some overseas aid charities say they're stunned that the move is reckless and a betrayal of the world's most vulnerable children, a view shared by some Labour MPs.
I've got to say I am hugely frustrated at this very short-sighted decision. It's the wrong decision. It's going to impact not just on the poorest people in the world, but also on us here. This does not make us safer. Preventing conflict makes us safer, and that's what development money does.
This means that so many of the world's poorest children will be deprived of crucial support that British aid provides, including through crucial vaccinations, support for nutrition, support for livelihoods. Critically, it is a decision that really will cause the government to shoot themselves in the foot. So at the moment, we're seeing aid being pitted against defence, saying that it's one or the other, when in actual fact, these two things are critical. They work together.
But that's not how President Trump sees it. He wants others, including the French, to spend more on defending themselves. In a press conference this evening, Keir Starmer was asked whether he'd simply caved to pressure from America.
I think in our heart of hearts, we've all known that this decision has been coming for 3 years, since the beginning of the conflict in Ukraine. The last few weeks have accelerated my thinking on when we needed to make this announcement.
Keir Starmer will be in Washington later this week. He'll hope today's announcement deflects some of Donald Trump's criticism. Vicky Young, BBC News, Westminster.
So what will the extra money be used for, and how does the UK's defence spending compare to the rest of Europe? Here's our defence correspondent, Jonathan Beale.
Britain is still a major European military power. One of only 2 European countries that has nuclear weapons. The Royal Navy's one of the few to operate aircraft carriers. Neither come cheap. But it's Russia's invasion of another European nation that's ramped up the pressure to spend more on defence.
Let's go!
In reality, the UK's conventional armed forces have suffered decades of cuts.
You two, round here, let's go!
The regular army now at its smallest since Napoleonic times, at just over 70,000 strong. With fresh questions over what security guarantees a hollowed-out UK armed forces could provide to Ukraine. The Prime Minister says this increase in defence spending will be the largest sustained rise since the end of the Cold War. But it still won't take Britain back to the levels of, say, the 1950s, when spending was nearly 8% of GDP on defence. See here in the red line, gradually declining. The line in blue shows health spending, the opposite. So a rise to 2.5% by 2027 is still relatively modest. Keir Starmer says he wants the UK to be a leading nation in both NATO and Europe. But other nations have also been ramping up defence spending, some by even more. Poland is spending more than 4% of its GDP on defence now. Germany has almost doubled its defence budget. The reality is 2.5% won't be enough to reverse all the cuts.
You're not going to be able to fill every hole in the provision of defence for this nation in 2 years. That's simply not possible. There's not a capacity to do that. It's a job of many years, but I think this budget increase will mean you can start in that in a way which the country hasn't been able to do for some time.
The government's still to publish its defence review, setting out its priorities, but the war in Ukraine has highlighted the direction of travel, as well as gaps in Britain's defences. Most notably, shortfalls in long-range artillery and air defence systems. Ukraine also illustrates the revolution in drone warfare. This extra cash won't provide the armed forces with everything they want. But as for satisfying the Trump administration, it's certainly a start. The US Defence Secretary has called it a strong step. Jonathan Beale, BBC News.
Well, the US Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth has said tonight that the fast-tracked UK defence spending increase is a strong step from an enduring partner. Our political editor Chris Mason was there and at the news conference this afternoon. He joins us now from Westminster. Is this all about smoothing the way ahead of the Prime Minister's meeting with Donald Trump on Thursday?
It is at least partly about that, without question. It is not a coincidence, Sophie, that this announcement has come today ahead of what is the Prime Minister doing tomorrow? Getting on a plane to Washington to see a president who is firstly wildly unpredictable, but what we do know about him is he is keen for the US's allies to spend more on defence, and he is also personally keen on cutting aid budgets. So both sides of the budgeting ledger here in the UK are likely to be warmly received in the White House. But it is also true that there's been an argument for some time building at Westminster in a number of political parties suggesting that defence spending had to go up. And then came the question as to how that would happen. And what the Prime Minister has managed to find is a solution that doesn't involve having to crank up taxes yet further, nor cut domestic spending, which people might feel instantly day to day. But as we heard in Vicky's report, there is still opposition in Parliament and beyond to these aid cuts. And there's also a bigger question, if you like, for the coming months and years, and one that I put to the Prime Minister in this news conference in the last hour. To what extent is this, even with these wider questions about increasing defence spending, an example, and perhaps the first of other examples to come, where policies here are effectively being set in the White House?
We're seeing firsthand what conflict looks like in Europe in 2025. We have to respond to that for the safety and security of our country. So this is very much my decision based on my assessment of the circumstances that we face as a country. And it is taken first and foremost to ensure that the United Kingdom and its citizens are safe and secure. That is the first duty that I have as Prime Minister. It is my duty, my responsibility, and that is why I have taken this decision today.
And the terms of that first duty, as the Prime Minister puts it, have changed and changed radically in just the last couple of weeks, given what the President has said, stepping away from potentially offering the security umbrella to Europe that America for a generation has offered. All of this teeing up that trip to Washington, which is going to be vitally important and fascinating.
Chris Mason, our political editor, thank you. Energy bills for a typical household will rise by a lot more than expected from April. The energy regulator Ofgem is encouraging people to consider a fixed price deal on their energy bills after announcing the increase in its price cap, which affects more than 22 million homes in England, Wales and Scotland. The 6.4% increase in April means a household using a typical amount of gas and electricity will see their annual bill rise by £111 a year to £1,849. That's more than £600 more than it was in October 2022, before the energy crisis caused by the war in Ukraine, when the average bill was £1,200. By January 2023, it was up to £2,400 and would have been more than £4,000 without a government price guarantee. Our cost of living correspondent Coletta Smith has more.
Who should appear on the farm? Energy bills are always a juggle for families, and at this baby class, Chloe is dreading another rise.
I've got three others, a 3-year-old, 9-year-old and a 13-year-old. It is a worry because I don't want to get my children poorly by not having the heating on. I'm not sure when it's going to end really and how it's going to change, how we're going to bring it back down again.
The regulator says they've no choice but to allow suppliers to increase prices. Over the last couple of months, we've seen more instability in Ukraine, we've seen a colder than expected winter across Europe, and President Trump coming back to power in America has created more global instability. And that means that we are all paying more for our energy bills as a result. But customers are still frustrated.
We overpay, and that last year was fine. It covered us through winter, but now it's not covered us, so now we're paying extra.
A record 3.8 million households are in energy debt, but the government say more help will be available for next winter.
We're going to take action by putting forward proposals for an extra 2.7 million families to get £150 off bills next winter as part of the Warm Homes discount. And we're acting to bring down bills for everyone with our mission for clean, homegrown power that we control.
But there are ways to save money now, like opting for a fixed price deal.
There are savings to be made out there, so run a comparison, see what's out there for you, take a look at the deals on the market. If you're looking to fix, we recommend you take a look at the duration of the tariff.
And plenty of households are making physical changes too, to keep a lid on their bills.
Get that good bit of insulation up there, that can save roughly, depending on the size of the house, £250, £400 a year.
With more price rises forecast later in the year, those savings will become increasingly important.
Well, let's get more from Coletta in Salford, and people are being encouraged to look for the best deal.
Yeah, they are. For anyone who hasn't already fixed their energy prices, we're talking about an extra tenner a month if you're on that standard variable rate. And this time last year, there was very little that we could say in terms of advice for people to try and save money, but the landscape's really changed over the last 12 months with a lot more fixed price deals coming onto the market that are beneath that price cap level. Obviously, the industry as well as customers realising that those price rises that you talked about there weren't just a blip, that actually they're here to stay, and the market's adjusting to that as a result. We've seen 4 million customers just over the last 3 months fix their energy prices. Lots of people coming round to the idea that actually if they shop around there are savings to be made, and of course that's increasingly important, particularly because of the timing of this rise kicking in on the 1st of April, which is the exact moment that the majority of households in Britain will also face a rise in their council tax and their water bills. So any savings that can be made would really help.
Coletta Smith, thank you. A 37-year-old man has pleaded guilty to stalking the Strictly Come Dancing head judge, Shirley Ballas, over a 6-year period. Our correspondent, Ellie Price, has been following the story, and the court has been hearing about the significant impact it had on her life over a long period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. Liverpool Crown Court heard that Shirley Ballas had to move her mother, who's in her 80s, out from her home because of what was going on. According to the charge, Kyle Shaw's actions had a substantial adverse effect on her day-to-day life. She felt she had to up her security measures and change her work and social commitments. Now, the 37-year-old from Birkenhead pleaded guilty to stalking and causing serious harm or distress between August 2017 and November 2023. Of course, she became the head judge on the show in 2017, so it all seems to have started around that point. The court heard that he made continued unwanted attempts to try to contact her. He even posted a picture of her house on social media and tried to get in contact with her friends, family and work colleagues. Now, the defendant was told there was a very real risk he would receive a prison term when he's sentenced in April. For now, though, he's been given conditional bail.
Ellie Price, thank you. The time is just after 6:15. Our top story this evening. UK defence spending is to rise to 2.5% of GDP by 2027. The increase will be funded by cuts to the foreign aid budget. And still to come, it's all change at the top of the NHS in England as Amanda Pritchard resigns as chief executive.
And at 6:30, do you know an unsung hero? We're looking for nominations for this year's Make a Difference Awards and find out how one area of South West London is gearing up for an important year of culture.
A law to give terminally ill adults on the Isle of Man the right to end their own lives is in its final stages in the island's parliament. It paves the way for the Isle of Man to become the first jurisdiction in the British Isles to legalise assisted dying. From there, our health correspondent Dominic Hughes reports.
After 2 years of debate on assisted dying for the terminally ill, the arguments are nearly over. Outside the Isle of Man Parliament, campaigners gathered possibly for the final time. Among them, Millie, who we met earlier this week. She lost her beloved son James to cancer. It was a difficult, painful death, but one that cemented her belief in assisted dying.
I wish with all my heart and soul that assisted dying had been in. I really do, because he would have opted for it. It'll give an awful lot of people the chance that James didn't have, give an awful lot of people the chance to say, you know, enough is enough, let me pass over.
The bill that's poised to become law will make the Isle of Man the first place in the British Isles to allow the terminally ill to take their own lives. The legislation being debated here at Tynwald says that those who want to access assisted dying on the Isle of Man need to be over the age of 18, they have to have a terminal illness and expected to die within the next 12 months. They also need to have the legal capacity to make that decision, which will be reviewed by 2 independent doctors. Today saw the final debate on the bill, with some important lessons for those other parts of the UK looking at similar measures.
I think key to
any debate about legislation on assisted dying is to explain what it is and what it isn't, is to look at some of the safeguards that people are concerned about, particularly about coercion and people being forced into this in some way because they feel there's a burden, and really concentrating on the fact that assisted dying gives people the ability to have choice and autonomy about how and where they die.
But many of the island's medics remain opposed to assisted dying, worried about the possible impact on the most vulnerable people and the danger of coercion.
The safeguards that are in place on this one, I'm not going to know if somebody has been coerced by a relative into ending their life sooner than they wish. So I won't be getting involved in it.
The Isle of Man legislation is now almost certain to become law, but the wider debate over assisted dying is far from over. Dominic Hughes, BBC News, Douglas.
The Chief Executive of NHS England, Amanda Pritchard, is stepping down from her role at the end of March. She'd recently come under scrutiny from 2 committees of MPs for her handling of the NHS and was accused of lacking the dynamism needed to take the health service forward. Our health editor, Hugh Pym, is here. So pressure from the government to go?
Well, Sophie, it's not clear-cut. What seems to have happened is that the Secretary of State, Wes Streeting, at Health and Social Care, wants to bring NHS England, an arm's-length body, much closer to his own department, to streamline it and then devolve some powers to the regions of England. And of course, Amanda Pritchard, when she took over the role in 2021, she'd been number 2 for a couple of years before that, was used to a rather different role from what is now envisaged. So perhaps not surprising she's chosen not to carry on. Yes, it's true she had a hard time at a Common Select Committee, accused of complacency over NHS productivity, which she strongly denied. I'm told that wasn't a major factor in today's announcement, and the parting was amicable. So what happens next? Well, Sir Jim Mackey takes over the role as transition CEO, as it's now called. He's run trusts in the northeast of England, has already been working on waiting list plans, so he'll work very closely with Wes Streeting. But of course, the waiting list for planned treatment in England is now 7.46 million. There are long waits in A&E, big challenges, and I think it's all very well bringing these 2 organisations closer together, but more scrutiny now, I think, of the Secretary of State.
Hugh, thank you. The BBC has issued an apology saying it fell short and failed people after an independent review into allegations against the DJ Tim Westwood found evidence of bullying and misogynistic behaviour. The report was commissioned in 2022 when 18 women made allegations of predatory and unwanted sexual behaviour, all strongly denied by Tim Westwood. The findings reveal there were several occasions when the BBC missed opportunities that might have led to action. Chichi Izundu reports.
Now that I'm older, realise that, it was grooming and predatory. But at that time, you didn't want the shame because, I'll get the blame. Not him. I'll get the blame because I'm no one. So I just kept quiet because then you won't get pointed and looked at, oh yeah, that's the girl that, accused, Tim of sexually abusing her when she was underage.
I didn't know how old he was.
It was these stories from 18 black women who came forward in 2022 to detail what they described as unwanted predatory sexual behaviour and touching against the former BBC Radio 1 DJ Tim Westwood that triggered this report. Tim Westwood was known for his love of hip-hop, championing the genre on UK radio from the early 90s. The BBC today apologised, saying it fell short because the report found a considerable body of evidence that it failed to investigate properly. Today's report did find that there was no widespread or significant knowledge about the allegations, but it is critical about how BBC management handled complaints about Tim Westwood, highlighting that a response to some of the incidents it found could have been a referral to police. In response to today's report, the BBC board stated there is evidence of bullying and misogynistic behaviour. The organisation fell short and failed people, including our own staff, who had a right to expect better from us.
It's Westwood!
Tim Westwood started work in Radio 1 in 1994 and left in 2013. The report concluded his departure was in part down to his behaviour. Tim Westwood is currently performing at nightclubs in Nigeria. He declined to take part in the report because of the ongoing investigation by the Metropolitan Police. Through his lawyers, he's denied the allegations. Chichi Azundu, BBC News.
A jury has been shown CCTV footage showing the moment thieves stole a solid gold toilet from Blenheim Palace in Oxfordshire, where it was on display. 3 men accused of theft of the art installation have denied any involvement. A 4th has pleaded guilty to burglary. From Oxford Crown Court, Duncan Kennedy reports.
This is the fully functioning solid gold toilet at the centre of the trial. Made by an Italian artist and seen here at an earlier exhibition, it's insured for nearly £5 million. The jury was today shown these CCTV pictures of the alleged raid in September 2019. 2 cars pull up at Blenheim Palace. Soon after, one of the men is seen at the window where the break-in takes place. Others carry sledgehammers and a crowbar towards the window. At this point, security guards switch on the floodlights, which turn the images into colour. A few moments later, one man can be seen holding what appears to be a golden toilet seat. Others carry the rest of the toilet, before placing it into the boot of their car. A separate black and white camera catches both vehicles leaving, and security guards can be seen running after them. The prosecution said that the whole raid lasted around 5 minutes, and they described the theft of the 98-kilogram gold toilet as audacious. 3 men are on trial, including Michael Jones, seen here arriving at court, who denies burglary. Frederick Doe denies conspiring to transfer criminal property, as does Bora Guchuk, also seen at court today. A 4th man, James Sheen, has pleaded guilty to burglary. The jury was told that the toilet was never recovered. The trial continues tomorrow. Duncan Kennedy, BBC News, in Oxford.
Now, have a look at this. It's a rare sight, a planetary parade. For the next 3 nights, 7 planets, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Mars, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune, will all be visible in the evening sky. Not something that you will be able to see again until 2040. Well, some are easier to see with the naked eye than others. And this is a live shot of Jupiter that's being taken for us right now by keen astronomer David Arditi, who is in North London. Our science correspondent Palab Ghosh can tell us more.
For weeks, we've been able to see as many as 6 planets in the night sky. Now, this planetary parade has reached its climax, with Mercury also coming into view, completing the full set of the other planets in our solar system. Among the stargazers catching a glimpse is Scotland's Astronomer Royal.
So, as I love a good planetary parade, I've cycled up Arthur's Seat this evening in Edinburgh in the hope to get a clear view of the western horizon, where Mercury is joining the rest of the planets in the planetary parade this week. Unfortunately, the weather gods are against me, because whilst I cycled up the hill, the clouds have rolled in from the west, but I can still see Venus shining brightly up there, Jupiter's right up there, and I've got Mars over there in the east. So I've seen 3 of the best planets, even if the elusive Mercury is hiding behind the clouds.
Our Earth is one of 8 planets that orbit the Sun. Usually you can't see them all in one go because they go round at different speeds, but right now they're all in the right place to see in the night sky. Mercury, Venus, Mars and Jupiter are visible with the naked eye. Saturn is harder to see because it's low on the horizon, and for Uranus and Neptune you'll need a telescope because they're so far away. So what's the best way of seeing the planetary parade?
You need to start pretty much in twilight, as soon as the sun has set, and then you need to look over at Mercury and Saturn over in the west, both very low down. Don't be disappointed if they're hard to pick out. Above them, really very obviously, is Venus. It's the brightest of the planets, absolutely sparkling, you can't miss it. If you've got a telescope, you can find Neptune and Uranus, but again, you know, you need a telescope for those. And then further round still is Jupiter. That's really bright too. It should be very easy to pick out. And then even further round over in the eastern sky is Mars, and that's got this distinct pinkish reddish colour, so it really stands out too.
How often does this sort of thing happen?
Planet parades are not entirely rare, but it's unusual to see quite so many planets at once, and to see them, well, really convenient located for us in the UK. So even kids won't have gone to bed by the time these are in the sky.
All 7 planets will be visible for only a few more days, and the next time to see the spectacle so well again will be in 2040. Palab Ghosh, BBC News.
So you're going to have to wait 15 years. If you don't see them this week, well, Ben Rich, what's the chance? How clear are the skies going to be?
There is a chance, Sophie, because there are some clear skies out there this week, and certainly right now many places across the UK do have largely clear skies. There's a bit of patchy cloud out there. We have seen a few shower clouds around today. Behind me, well, this stripe of bright white cloud, this is our next rain-bearing weather system. That'll bring wet weather for some of us through tonight and into tomorrow. So any showers that we do have will tend to fade away, then some clear sky, but then we see this band of quite heavy rain swinging in from the west. If you hold on to clear skies, northern and eastern parts, it is going to be a cold night, but by the end of the night, Cardiff at 6 degrees, Plymouth at 8 degrees, it does turn milder as our weather system works its way through. A little bit of snow over the highest ground of the Pennines, the southern uplands, that wet weather swinging its way eastwards. Plenty of showers following on behind, but with some sunny spells. So as we head towards the end of the day tomorrow, again, many places should have some clear skies. Northern Scotland staying largely dry. Temperatures around 6 to 9 degrees, a little bit windy out towards the west. Now that weather system clears, and as we get into Thursday, well, we start to feel the effects of this ridge of high pressure just building its way in. So while there will be a few showers around on Thursday, many places are looking at fine weather, some good spells of sunshine, and temperatures once again generally around 6 to 9, maybe 10 degrees Celsius. And that area of high pressure, well, it's going to stay with us actually, building more strongly through Thursday night and into Friday. We could see some fog patches underneath the high on Friday morning, but you can check the chances of fog where you are by having a look at the BBC weather app. Much of that fog should clear. Lovely looking day on Friday, and then actually not a bad start to March with a lot of fine weather through the weekend. Sophie.
Lovely, thank you very much. And that's it from us on the BBC News at 6. It is time now to join our colleagues for the news where you are. Goodbye.